Innerville Club of Bombay Seacoast President Neeta Mirchandani. I welcome you all for this very important webinar on stroke. No stroke. FAST. F for face, A for arm, S for speech, and T for time. I warmly welcome all our district dignitaries who are present here today. I welcome our honorable speaker, Dr. Pradyumna Oak, who is a director and head of neurology at Nanavati Hospital. I am thankful and warmly welcome all our 47 co-host class. And friends, I would like to acknowledge them. Rotary Club of Bombay Airport, Juhu Beach, Kandivali, Mahakali Heights, Mid City, Northwest Malad, Powai, Queen City, Seaface, Worli, Borivali, Dahanu, Devas, Marvels, Andheri, Bandra Kurla Complex, Borivali East, Brave Hearts, Coastline, Dahisar, Elite, Elegance, Ghatkopar West, Harmony, Iconic, Jewels, Juhu, Kandivali West, Kalakar, Khar, Mahim, Nariman Point, North Island, North End, Marleshwar, Rising Stars, Royals, South, Warsaw, Vadala East, Western Elite, West End, West Coast, Palghar, Ulhasnagar, Vasai, and Virar. Thank you so much for all co-host clubs for showing so much interest in this webinar. And thank you for your participation in the same. Friends, for last 4 months, this is our from our Rotary Club of Bombay Seacoast. This is our fourth public awareness webinar on medical subjects. We started with diabetic foot, then heart attack, then glaucoma, and now the medical condition that frightens us a lot, that is stroke. I now invite our medical director, Rotarian Kunal Kapadia, to moderate the session. Kunal, please.
Thank you, President Kishore. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rotary's webinar on No Stroke Fast. Before we begin, a big salute to my team medical committee members and my dear Seacoasters. My name is Kunal Kapadia, and I am brainless. To get a stroke, one needs to have a brain. You know what that means. With a stroke of good luck and karma, our beloved DG Rotarian Sunil Mehra has been inspiring us towards this awareness outreach in these challenging times. He's not been able to make it today, but has sent us his blessings. Thank you, DG. Very importantly, though, I must thank the man who's been driving us this year at Rotary Club of Bombay Seacoast. He is my president, Kishore Masurkar. Let me share some adverse and uncalled for feedback opinions about him. Kishore must be cringing in his chair right now. So here goes. He is a cool dude, soft-spoken but firm. He's always positive and encouraging. He has led our club really well during this once-in-a-lifetime crisis this year, unless you are 100 years old. Thank you, President Kishore, for all your support. Right. Please do post your questions on the chat. I have 3 family folks lined up to note these questions. These guys are charging me for this, so please make it worth the cost for me. Now let's get cracking again. By a stroke of good luck and karma, we also have the highly accomplished Dr. Oak with us. Known for his expertise in neurology and stroke, Dr. Pradyumna J. Oak is currently associated as the Director and Head of Neurology at Nanavati Hospital, Mumbai, and has an experience of 15 years in this field. Dr. Oak practices at Nanavati Super Speciality Hospital in Villeparle West, which is one of the best in stroke management, and Saifi Hospital in South Mumbai. Dr. Oak is an experienced neurologist with good experience in teaching. He was associated with GS Medical College and KEM Hospital for his knowledge in acute stroke management and neurointervention. His work is published on different platforms. After successful practice of 3 years, Dr. Oak went to Canada as an observer in a stroke center, after which he decided to get a fellowship in interventional neurology at Pune with Dr. Anand Alurkar. He has been actively involved in interventional neurology, practice and managing patients of acute stroke, aneurysm, carotid, and intracranial stenosis and AV malformations, etc. Over to you, Dr. Oak.
Hello, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be a participant in this webinar and spread awareness about stroke because stroke, if not treated in time, can have a devastating complications or consequences. So, shall we start with our? Today we will be discussing about stroke, and now I'll be explaining what is stroke, what is TIA, and what is aneurysm or bleeding in the brain. So to come to the statistics, it is number two killer cause in India, and it is number two disabler following road accidents. So stroke, if not treated in time, can have devastating complications, as I told you before. And it happens in 1 in 6 patients, 1 in 6 people, normal. 1 in 6 people you can have a stroke in their lifetime, and it is experienced by more than 1.5 million Indians every year. So almost every 20 seconds, we are having one stroke. Unfortunately, out of these, only 2% patients come to the hospital in the golden hour, what we call as the golden hour, which will I explain in my slides ahead. But only 2% patients receive a proper treatment for stroke because patients don't come to the hospital or they go to the wrong hospital when they develop stroke symptoms. Next slide, please. So how do we know about stroke? So we need to know what is stroke, then what is TIA or transient ischemic attack. What are the signs of stroke? How do we identify that we or somebody known to us is developing a stroke? Then what one should do if they develop symptoms suggestive of stroke? What is the treatment for stroke? And what is the post-treatment care? Next, please. So stroke is a brain disease. And Kunal, you are as susceptible as all of us to develop a stroke, irrespective of what you said. So usually stroke can be of two types. One is ischemic and second is hemorrhagic. Now ischemic stroke occurs because of the block into the artery. So the part of the brain will not receive a blood supply. Whereas hemorrhagic stroke occurs because there is a rupture of the blood vessel and blood enters the brain parenchyma or sometimes on the surface of the brain. Now we see predominantly ischemic strokes more than the hemorrhagic stroke. So every around 9 out of 10 patients will be having ischemic strokes. But what is important is that even if a patient has an ischemic stroke or a hemorrhagic stroke, they will develop paralysis on one side. So it is very difficult to clinically say whether the patient has a block into the artery or whether the patient has a bleed in the artery unless we do a CT scan or MRI of that patient. So that's the most important thing. You cannot decide by clinically examining the patient whether this patient has a blocked artery or a ruptured artery. Next, please. So what is transient ischemic attack? So transient ischemic attack, to explain, is like angina, like how a heart patient after walking for some time develops some heaviness, chest pain. It's not a heart attack. It's not a myocardial infarct, but there is reduced blood supply to the heart. Similarly, transient ischemic attack is a mini stroke when a blood vessel supplying the brain is critically narrowed or critically stenosed. Sometimes brain will receive less blood supply temporarily, and therefore there will be a temporary weakness on one side of the body, but it recovers immediately, sometimes in less than 20 minutes. So this is called as transient ischemic attack. Why it is important? Because if a patient has a transient ischemic attack, he has to be investigated fast to identify the cause of the transient ischemic attack. We have to start the patient on blood thinner to prevent a major stroke, because once a stroke strikes, he will end up with permanent disability. Whereas in transient ischemic attacks, he recovers completely. So we have to identify transient ischemic attack and treat it as fast as possible. Next, please. So how do we diagnose stroke? So it is called as FAST. So it's very easy to diagnose common symptoms and signs of stroke. So if a patient, either yourself or somebody known to you, elderly in your family, so when they speak, you will see that face on one side is drooped because the muscles on that side is weak. So that is called as FAST. That is F. A is arm. You can ask the patient to lift both the arms in front. You will see that patient with stroke will not be able to lift both the arms normally. The one arm which is weak will droop or he will not be able to lift it at all. So that is the A in the FAST sign and symptom. Third is speech. The speech will be abnormal. I mean, if a patient calls to you even on mobile phone, you will realize that this patient is not talking normal. You can ask simple questions and you realize that there is a stuttering of speech, or there is jargon speech, he is not able to name few things. So that is S. And most important is time. We need to know when the patient was last seen normal, because if a patient comes to the hospital within first 4.5 hours, we can give an injection to reverse the paralytic symptoms of the patient. So time is most important in fast. So this is called as FAST. So I'll show you one patient. I'll demonstrate one patient how a fast looks like. So yeah. So if you can see in this video, it's very easy. You can see that this patient's left side of the face is not moving and he has difficulty in speaking. So this is face and speech. And as you can see, when I ask the patient to lift both the arms, you can see the left arm is drifted and it's not normal as the right upper limb. So this is very simple and very easy to understand the stroke symptoms and signs. And if anybody near to you develops these symptoms, he has to be rushed to the hospital immediately. Unfortunately, stroke is a negative symptom. Like patient has weakness, patient doesn't have pain, like how it happens in fracture or how it happens in heart attack. Therefore, patient and we never we underestimate negative symptoms. So patient has a tendency to underestimate his weakness. They feel that this is some nerve compression, it will improve with time, but it's not like that. It can remain permanently like that. So you have to go to the hospital for treatment of stroke. Next, please. And when we treat a stroke, it's a complete teamwork. We activate code white, which I'll show in next slide. And there are a lot of people involved in the management of stroke, starting from your house, your general practitioner, and our entire stroke team. It's like pit stop for the Ferrari. If you don't, even one person lacks behind in his work, it can cause devastating complications. Either the car will topple and the driver will get injured. So it's very important that treatment of stroke is a complete teamwork. Next, please. So what we say to the patients or in our awareness programs, that if you have a stroke, you have to come to a stroke ready hospital. Now, what is stroke ready hospital? So we are at Nanavati Super Specialty Hospital. We have a CT scan center, we have an MRI center, we have a neuro ICU, we have cath lab, we have a stroke neurologist, that's me, we have interventional neurology department, which is handled by me. So everything is at one place under the same roof. So if a patient of stroke comes, we have all these facilities available 24/7. Now, you can take the patient to a nursing home and your family doctor, who are very intelligent, who are very bright, they will diagnose clinically that you have stroke, but they won't be able to offer you correct treatment unless they do a CT scan or MRI. So you will be sent to the CT scanner or MRI if it is not available in the nursing home or in his clinic. And then the report will come either after 2 hours, 4 hours, or even next day. So you are diagnosed correctly, but you cannot be treated correctly because that golden hour or that window to treat acute stroke is lost. So the patient has to come to a stroke ready hospital where everything is available, diagnosis as well as treatment. Now, when a patient comes to us, now what is happening is that because of a increase in awareness, usually we are aware that a patient of stroke is coming to the hospital. So the patient, the minute patient is landed to the accident emergency, that is our emergency department, we activate code white. So when a code white is activated, the whole hospital gets an alarm that a stroke patient has come to the hospital, and 34 people get an automated call, including our security, including our liftman, including our radiology department, neurology department, intensive care department. So all of us know that a code white or a stroke patient has come, and the patient is immediately rolled. A green corridor is developed, and the patient is immediately taken to the MRI center. Now, by and large, we use MRI as a modality to diagnose and treat strokes in our hospital. And this all is done to save time, because every minute, if we delay treatment of stroke, we are losing 2 lakh neurons. So each minute, so time is brain. Each minute is important when we are treating acute stroke. And our door to needle time, for example, I mean, when a patient is wheeled into the hospital and when we start the injection to treat the stroke is around 35 minutes, which is the guideline by American Heart Association. Next slide, please. So there are 2 ways to treat acute stroke. Now, initially in the few years earlier, say till 2016, we used to treat strokes only for first 6 hours. So if a patient is coming within first 4.5 hours, we give an injection called as Actilize, which bursts the clot and recanalizes the vessel. So it restores the blood flow into the vessel. Now, in selected stroke patients, we do a mechanical thrombectomy. So what we do is how it is done in the heart. So we take a small puncture into the femoral artery, we go up to the clot, right into the brain vessel, and we suck the clot with a catheter. So this treatment can be done up to 24 hours now, but it cannot be offered in all the patients, but we do that in selected patients based on their MRI findings, which I'll tell you later. Next, please. Okay, so this is how we do mechanical thrombectomy, and it's done in the cath lab where all the cardiac procedures are done. So we share the cath lab with the cardiologist. So this patient has occlusion of a brain vessel. So you can see the clot, which is occluding a major blood vessel in the brain, and this patient clinically will have right side hemiplegia. He will not be able to speak. So we take a puncture into the femoral artery in groin, and we go right up to the right through the aorta into the carotid artery. So this is the aorta, and then we enter the left carotid artery in this particular patient because the left MCA, that is middle cerebral artery, is blocked. So you can see that this is the blocked artery. With the help of a catheter, suction catheter, we go up to the proximal end of the clot. So we engage our catheter into the clot, and then we attach this catheter to a suction machine outside the body, and we do this suction for 90 seconds. And when we suck the clot comes into the catheter, and the catheter is removed from the artery, restoring normal blood flow to the brain. Now, typically, these patients remain in the ICU for a couple of days, and if we do it in time, we have seen miraculous results. Patients who came on a wheelchair in unconscious, on a stretcher in unconscious state, walking normally out of the hospital. So this can create magic if patient comes in time. So you can see on the right hand side there are two images. This is the carotid artery which was occluded right from the origin, which is a big artery. I'm so sorry. And am I audible now? And this slide, you can see that there is a complete restoration of the blood circulation. Next slide, please. Okay, so once this patient is treated, we have to identify why the stroke has developed. So we do a 2D echo of these patients. We do blood tests like we see the cholesterol levels. Then we do a Holter monitoring to see if this patient has some cardiac beating disturbances. And then we start the patient on treatment so that we prevent further episodes. So what is this treatment? So we give blood thinners, that is antiplatelets, that is aspirin, which you all must be knowing. Few of them probably are taking aspirin for other elements also like heart elements. Then we give clopidogrel, which is another antiplatelet. Then we give medicines to reduce the cholesterol. And we have to have a strict control of diabetes. The sugar has to be well under 200 all the times. We have to control the blood pressure very well. We have to stop smoking. Drinking alcohol is also prohibited if you develop the symptoms such as stroke or TIA. And exercise is most important. We have to exercise at least 40 minutes every day. And it's brisk walking. It's not just normal walking. It should be brisk walking at least 40 minutes every day, 5 days a week. Next slide, please. So what is TIA? As I told you, you can see that this is the carotid artery which supplies the important part of the brain, that is the anterior 2/3 of the brain on one side. And you can see that it is significantly narrowed here because of the plaque. So when a patient is a diabetic, hypertensive, smoker, has high cholesterol, the cholesterol and fibrin deposits they get deposited under the endothelium of the artery, and then the artery gradually gets narrowed. And these patients can have these small TIAs where they have this transient weakness and then they will improve. So what we do, we put a stent into the artery, which is done in a similar fashion. So we go into the artery through the femoral, through the groin, and we deliver this stent across the stenosis. You can see that the artery has completely opened up, and this patient never had a TIA or stroke again. Next, please. Okay, so sometimes what happens is that the arteries which are inside the brain, they also develop significant narrowing. You can see this was a young girl who developed this stenosis into the artery, and she started getting TIAs despite taking aspirin and clopidogrel. So despite all preventive medicines, medical management, she was having these TIAs. So we have done a stenting of the intracranial artery. So we use the same stent what we use for the coronary vessel stenting, and you can see that there is a complete recanalization and there is no stenosis after the procedure. This patient is doing well and she still comes for the follow-up 3 years down the line. Next, please. So coming to hemorrhagic stroke. So what happens in hemorrhage? There is a weakness into the arteries of the brain, and then it causes a balloon formation onto the vessel wall. And this balloon ruptures and it causes extravasation of blood on the surface of the brain. Now, this is a very, very morbid condition, and it can be fatal in 30% of the patients. So what happens is that when this ruptures, 30% of the patients, they don't reach the hospital. It's so fatal. And those who reach the hospital, they have to be treated aggressively to prevent further damage to the brain. So previously, these patients used to undergo open surgery, which will add to the further morbidity. But now we put coils in the aneurysm. So we again do this through the femoral artery, and we don't have to open the skull of the patient. So it reduces the hospitalization time and it reduces the morbidity also in these points. So these patients. So we treat these patients by putting coils inside their aneurysm. Next slide, please. So this is how it is done. This is an aneurysm in this patient. So we enter with a microcatheter, and then we put platinum coils inside this aneurysm. So these coils are extremely thrombogenic. And once we put it into the aneurysm, they form a clot inside the aneurysm so that blood doesn't go into the aneurysm, so it doesn't rupture anymore. So it is completely excluded from the circulation by putting coils inside the aneurysm. So you can see on the right-hand side, this is a balloon which is seen, which is a big aneurysm this patient had. So this patient was treated without opening the skull. We just went inside the aneurysm and we put coils, and you can see this is the DSA of the patient after putting the coils. You can see this white round thing, which is the aneurysm filled with coils, and then there is no dye or no blood is entering into that aneurysm. So this patient was cured without doing any major surgery on him. Next, please. So once these patients are treated with coiling, or we use a stent called flow diverter to these patients as well. So these patients remain typically in the ICU for 10 to 14 days because we have to treat the complications which are caused by the blood on the surface of the brain, and we have to manage blood pressure strictly in a certain range, as well as we have to give these patients antiepileptics because these patients are prone to develop fits, and extensive physiotherapy and neurorehabilitation has to be done in cases of SA, subarachnoid hemorrhage, or these types of bleeding on the surface of the brain. Next, please. On now 29th October is celebrated as World Stroke Day, and Nanavati Super Specialty Hospital, we are launching 2 initiatives. They are in the pipeline, but this is like a soft announcement. We are launching a 24/7 stroke helpline, and we are probably going to be the first institute in India to get artificial intelligence software for choosing the right patients for stroke treatment. But it's all in the pipeline, and probably we will be launching it on 29th October. Thank you so very much once again. I'm sorry I'm 4 minutes beyond the schedule, but I had to. I had to include all about stroke. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oak. That was fantastic. And I think 20 minutes is not enough. Okay. So I'd like to say that आपने हमारा दिमाग ठिकाने लगा दिया. Okay. So let's take a few questions now, Doctor. The first and the most obvious one. Does COVID have something to do with stroke?
Yes. It's a very important question. See, COVID has, the pandemic has a lot of issues. So what happens in COVID is that COVID causes rise of the inflammatory markers in your blood. So these inflammatory markers, when they increase, especially the D-dimer levels, it causes a thrombogenic state in your body. So definitely, when the initial few patients of COVID were published, the initial few studies, they found that 5% of COVID patients develop stroke, that is thrombotic stroke. And if a patient of COVID develops a stroke, the outcome is not as good as a patient develops a stroke when he has no COVID. So, for example, if a normal patient develops a stroke, the chance of that patient dying is up to 1 to 3% with these current management techniques. But if a patient of COVID develops a stroke, the chance of him dying is 30%. So it almost increases 20 times more. So it's a severe stroke usually if a patient of COVID develops a stroke. We have done a COVID and stroke study in Nanavati. We have around 20 patients in last 3 months. So in India, the statistics says that up to 1.5% of COVID patients can develop a stroke. And as we understood the disease better, once the patient of COVID comes and hospitalized, and we do the blood marker. So if we find that the D-dimer level is high, these patients, we start them on preventive and prophylactic treatment. Like these patients are started on anticoagulants, that is heparin. And later we prescribe oral medicines to keep the blood thin for next 3 weeks. So the incidence has gradually gone down. But when it started, there were a lot of stroke patients that we saw because of COVID.
Awesome. Understood, doctor. Thank you. The other question that we were thinking of was, do stroke patients have to be transported to the clinic in an ambulance, or they can just walk to the hospital, doctor?
So it's a very important question. So all of us must have seen 3 Idiots, and you can see how Aamir Khan transports his friend's father. So we want you to transport the patient exactly in a similar way, because if you wait for an ambulance, it's going to take another 20 minutes. So what we tell the patient usually, if a patient is breathing properly, then we ask the patient in any transport. But if the patient's blood pressure is very high, or if he is unconscious completely, if he is not breathing well, then that has to be taken care. So these patients, we suggest that they should come in an ambulance. But if a patient has only weakness but other vitals are stable, we don't ask them to wait for the ambulance to come. They should be transported as fast as possible.
Understood, doc. If someone has a heart attack, will that person also have a stroke subsequently? Can it be avoided?
Yeah. So basically, the blood vessels are same at all the places. So if a patient has a heart attack because of the bad coronaries, it's likely possible that this patient has a bad vessels in the brain also. But we don't investigate these patients if they don't have symptoms of TIA or stroke. The treatment for the heart attack is going to work for treatment for the brain vessels also. But if a patient has a very bad heart disease, sometimes to the extent that they will require bypass surgery, then we do a test called as carotid Doppler. So we see the major vessels which are supplying the brain. In 30% of the patients, if a patient requires a bypass surgery, there is a good possibility that they will have a bad disease in the carotid also. And then that has to be treated. Otherwise, whatever is the treatment, medical management for heart disease, it is going to be applicable for the brain also, like giving antiplatelets, blood thinners, reducing your lipid cholesterol levels, and good exercise. So that stands for the brain disease also.
Fair, doctor. Understood. So work out and eat well.
Yes.
Doctor, does a smoker have a higher risk of stroke? What about alcohol consumption?
Yeah. So coming to smoking first, it's not only smoking, tobacco in any form. Even if you chew, few patients use tobacco paste. So all this, tobacco in any form is injurious. Smoking, chewing, or applying paste as a morning ritual, it's not allowed. It should be prohibited. It has to be stopped. And a lot of patients say that they will gradually reduce. It's all or none. If you stop smoking today, you will see the benefit after 5 years. So smoking has to be stopped. It can cause devastating complications on the heart as well as on the brain. When it comes to drinking, now theoretically, we can allow, a lot of patients ask me, doctor, can we drink? So what books suggest that you can drink 15 ml a day. You cannot drink 90 ml in one day, but you can drink 15 ml for 6 days a week. So all my patients say that then might as well we'll stop drinking because 15 ml is nothing for us. So drinking also is not allowed, not more than 15 ml.
Thank you for that guidance, doctor. Do other lifestyle diseases like diabetes or BP increase the probability of stroke?
Yes, they are the main risk factors. Now, when we come to the risk factors for stroke, one is our age, which we can't modify. As we grow older, our vessels grow older. They start developing a degeneration, and we are all susceptible to stroke beyond a particular age, which we can't modify. But the modifiable risk factors like diabetes, blood pressure, obesity, smoking, drinking alcohol, sedentary lifestyle, no exercise, these are very important risk factors which can lead to stroke. When there are more than two risk factors involved, all of us, if we have more than two risk factors, we are susceptible to develop a stroke. So we have to
Wow.
control these risk factors because they can be modified.
Right. Absolutely well said, doctor. That's true. Is there a particular, blood, urine, or an X-ray test parameter that is a sure shot indicator that a person is likely to suffer from a stroke soon?
Not really, and we don't recommend doing these tests unless patient has some symptoms, because we don't want to over-diagnose and over-treat anybody. That's not a very good thing to do.
Okay, understood. A different kind of a question. Is there a particular time of the day or night when strokes occur, most often as per your assessment, doctor?
Yes, it's a very important question. See, 10% of the stroke patients, they happen early in the morning. We call them as a wake-up stroke. So typically, daughter-in-law or son of the patient goes to wake the patient up for breakfast, and patient is not waking up. 10% of the patients will have stroke like that. All these patients, previously, we never used to give this treatment of TPA because we don't know when the patient was last normal. Patient was last normal when he or she slept at 11 o'clock at night. So it's already 8 hours. But now with newer techniques and newer studies, all these patients, we do MRI. And there is a fixed MRI criteria to select these patients also for these kind of treatment. So now these patients also can be benefited after giving this TPA or doing this suction procedure for removing the clot. So most of these patients also we treat. But in winter season also we usually see, because the platelet aggregation is more during cold season. So that is also the time when generally we see more stroke. But it can happen any time of the day.
Perfect. Understood, doctor. Is there a particular demographic type, male, female, age, nationality, food habit? I mean, is there an identified demographic type that is more susceptible to stroke, doctor?
As far as the gender is concerned, I mean, females are more gifted. They have this hormonal protection. So premenopausal women to develop a stroke is extremely unlikely because they have this natural protection because of the hormones. In postmenopausal stage, they are as susceptible as us for developing stroke. But there is no particular demographic. I mean, we see strokes all over India, more in poor socioeconomic people than in affluent people.
And obviously, food habits, doctor. I mean, bad food habits obviously increases.
Yes, bad food habits, stress, our work pattern, sedentary lifestyle, all this can cause.
Fair. Understood, doctor. Thank you. Doctor, can strenuous physical activity be taken up after a stroke over a period of time?
Yes, you can, but I usually recommend not a strenuous activity, but it should be more of a cardiovascular workout than a muscle building workout, because that's what is going to clean your vessels better.
Understood, doc. I have an audience question. If someone is showing signs of stroke, should one give or not give 6 tablets of Ecosprin? I don't even know what that tablet is.
It's a very important question. And see what happens, as I told in the first slide, that stroke can be because of a occlusion of a blood vessel, that is clot in a blood vessel, or it can be because of rupture in a blood vessel. Both these patients will have paralysis. Looking at the patient, we can never say whether it is a bleeding in the brain or whether it is occlusion of a blood vessel. Now, when a patient develops a heart attack, the first thing what your doctors ask you to do is give him 4 tablets of clopidogrel, that is Plavix, and 2 tablets of aspirin. We can't do that in a patient of stroke because we don't know whether it is a bleeding in the brain or whether it is a occlusion of a blood vessel. So if you give 6 tablets like this in a patient who probably has a bleeding, that patient will die. So strictly no treatment at home till we do this scan of the patient. We can't give anything at home. What you can give some tablet to reduce the blood pressure if the blood pressure is high. but no blood thinners unless we do a scan in stroke patient? It's a very important question, and thank you for the audience for asking this question. I should have mentioned it earlier, actually.
No problem, doctor. Thank you so much. Sandeep, could you please put up the next audience questions? Yeah, it's here. My friend Prashant Kalbag writes, any preventive measures like using hand grip pressing?
I practice allopathy and I have no clue about Reiki or acupuncture, but in studies it hasn't been proven to be helpful.
Okay, understood. His better half, definitely his better half, Bijal Kalbag asks, how soon should one start intervention?
So we don't put all the patients for intervention for two reasons. One, all patients, they don't need intervention unless there is a major blood vessel is occluded. We don't go ahead with intervention. Second, it is an expensive procedure. Third, there is a particular criteria. If a brain is already has lost or already is infarcted, then we don't do intervention. But when we do it, our door to the cath lab time or door to the puncture time is less than 1 hour. It should be less than 1 hour. That's the recommendation.
Understood. Rotarian Pankaj Tanna asks, can TIA occurrences be missed? Can you just, miss spotting it?
Yes, it's possible. It's possible because many a times they feel that probably it happened because he was sitting for a long time. So like how we get this numbness when we sit for a longer time, our feet become numb for some time. So most of the times patients ignore TIAs because they think it's not a stroke. They are not aware that it can be a stroke. So yes, it's missed. Many a times it's missed.
Understood. Next question, Sandeep. My friend Ravi Kumar Adukia, Rotarian from Seacoast, asks, any position he should be kept in, any medicine to be given if something like this is identified, doc?
If a stroke is there, if the blood pressure is high, only blood pressure medicine, no blood thinners, no aspirin, no Plavix, no clopidogrel, nothing. That is one. Sometimes a patient of stroke can get a fit to start with. Such patients, you should keep them in lateral decubitus position because the tongue falls. If a patient is very drowsy, then you try to keep the patient in lateral position because then the tongue falls and may cause difficulty in breathing for the patient. Otherwise, there is no particular position you should keep.
Okay. Rotarian Kalpa Desai, my dad has successfully undergone coiling for his aneurysm. Do we have to take extra care in these COVID times?
No.
Okay.
He has been cured, so he really doesn't need.
Perfect, doctor. Purvi Kapashi writes, stroke in shower if water hits head first. Is something like this true, doc?
I'm hearing it for the first time. It's definitely not true.
Okay. So Purvi, that's not true. My friend Sanjeev Muchalla writes, apart from Nanavati, which other hospitals are equipped? I mean, I know you are a staunch Nanavati fan, but give us some generic info, doctor, about which other places are equipped to deal with these situations.
Yeah. So Nanavati is one. Then in South Bombay, Saifi is one. HN Reliance is one. See, majority of the tertiary care hospitals are now well equipped because there is increasing stroke awareness. We can treat stroke in a better way. So most of the tertiary care hospitals have an active stroke program and aggressive stroke program now. But Nanavati is still the best.
Understood. So I think we are broadly done with the audience questions, doctor. My next question is to Arya Ori, who was the past president of Rotary Club of Bombay Seacoast, and she is also the Avenue Chair heading stroke as a major thrust project area for the district. But most importantly, she is also part of my team medical at Seacoast this year. So Arya, can you please, past President Arya, can you please elaborate on the efforts taken by Rotary in the area of stroke?
Thank you, Kunal, for the introduction. And thank you, Dr. Oak, for such a wonderful presentation. So, as you rightly said, Dr. Oak, we know that stroke is the #2 disabler in the country. And statistics say that over 17 lakh cases every year Out of that, 85% of them are coming from low to middle income group. Especially in city like Mumbai, we've heard that there are about 2,000 stroke cases, out of which only about 130 of them get treated on the right time. So that's the extent of the challenge before us. But the good news is that greater awareness and timely action can save a larger number of patients from dying or even suffering major permanent disability. So Rotary this year has considered stroke as one of their major thrust area, and as part of our efforts, we are basically trying to undertake 2 to 3 major initiatives. One is the awareness and the prevention. So we are helping clubs to undertake such kind of public awareness seminars where we can bring in medical experts like Dr. Oak to educate them on what should one do if you see yourself or the loved one getting stroke. That's one. Second is that we are also working, as Dr. Oak said, that the stroke treatment per se, especially the one following under the intervention group. Currently, no, there is no government scheme which is covering the stroke treatment end to end. The patient ends up paying at least 70% from the pocket. Is that right, Dr. Oak? Sandeep, can you unmute him, please?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's pretty expensive. I mean, it costs around 7 to 8 lakhs for the procedure itself. Yeah.
And of course, in the public hospitals, this cost could be about 3 to 4 lakhs odd. So we are looking at undertaking global grants for providing stroke treatment, falling under the intervention group for about 10 to 15 patients. So we are making efforts to talk to various donors to see who can come and support us for this. The third and the most important, as Dr. Oak said, that 29th October is celebrated as a World Stroke Day. So through Rotary, we are going to create some sort of social media campaign to increase awareness from 25th to 30th October. And one of our first program is this public webinar, which was showcased now. And we will continue to have a series of these intermittently throughout the year so that we can create awareness about this brain disease. So that's in a nutshell what Rotary is planning to do. And we hope that year on year, Rotary continues to undertake such global grants, awareness programs, and we can actually develop a program like how Rotary has done for pediatric heart surgery. So that's all. That's it from me, Kunal.
All right. Thank you, past President Arya, and thank you, Dr. Oak. Now, I'm moving on to Rotarian Sandeep Ori for the vote of thanks. But before I move on to him, I must thank him first because he's been the guy that has run this for us, and he obviously can't thank himself. So over to you, Sandeep, with a big thank you, and really appreciate your help as far as running this program goes. Over to you, Sandeep.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kunal, and I think it was a eye-opening session, or should I say a brain-opening session, because we're thinking of everything going inside and opening up. So no, it has really been helpful. There were some very practical suggestions and pointers that Dr. Oak gave, which I think we need to be a lot more aware of. Like I said in my message out to everyone, this is something that we will be able to use only if we are a lot more aware of it. So the more information we get and tell us, basic tips and tricks, how to be aware, I think that will help us and help us to help others. So thank you very much, Dr. Oak, for pointing these out very specifically and very pointed replies to all the questions. I also want to thank Kunal in his own inimitable way. He makes fun of people without them knowing. That's an art. So, so thank you, Kunal, for that. Avenue Chair Arya, thank you very much for telling us what it is that Rotary is planning to do, and we are definitely going to be looking forward to doing a few more of these programs, awareness programs primarily, and of course, once the global grants come in, that would be nice. Club President Kishore, what can I say? He's a star for us, and he's like really driving everybody and on all fronts. People say don't open up battles on all fronts. If they want to have a contrary view, they should meet Kishore Masurkar. This guy is amazing. He opens it up on all the fronts, and he is going full guns blazing on all the fronts. Okay, so Kishore, thank you for pushing all of us to do all of this. A big thank you to all our co-host clubs and presidents, And I must make a special thank to the Entod Pharma team of Kishore, who has provided, a great amount of support at the back end in terms of, putting all the creatives together and doing everything for us. So that's it from me, and back to you, Kunal or Kishore or whoever wants to take it.
All right, guys. Have a great Sunday, remaining Sunday, and have an early lunch. We're done 5 minutes or 10 minutes before time. Thank you, doctor. God bless you. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
Thank you, Doctor.
I will just end the broadcast, so everyone just stay over here for now.